Boom, episode 2. How exciting. How you doing,
And I'm
Georgia?
I'm pumped. I'm really excited. How are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. I think we had a lot of fun with the first one. We think there's something here, so we thought we'd keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, definitely. I think we thought there's more here than we thought there was, so it's good.
Yeah. Um so last week you guys listeners, you would know like I sort of carried the weight of it just with Georgia was quite nervous leading into it. She wasn't sure she wasn't gonna know what to say. She was worried she was gonna get stumped on a few things. I
Yeah.
actually thought she crushed it, did really well. No awkward pauses, no nothing. So, gonna put a little bit more pressure on her, and we're gonna have her run a bit more of the show today. So, Georgia, I'm gonna
As
pass it on to you.
yeah, I mean, as any good coach does, right? You put a bit of more pressure onto me, which is good.
I think
I
so.
think, yeah, I think so. Like, look, last week I was nervous, not going to lie about it. I think we put it back probably a month before I finally agreed to recording with you, which is good. But yeah, I thought I crushed it too. I thought you crushed it as well, Matt.
Yeah. Oh, to be fair, I've done 30 other episodes on a different podcast, so I've got a little bit more experience.
A little bit more experience. Look, I
Yeah.
got the knowledge. I think I listen to about three podcasts a day, so that
There you
is
go.
always
I
good.
think that's the hardest thing about podcasting is like if as long as you can listen and be inquisitive, it's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy. It's just like having a conversation, right?
Weirdly. But isn't it weird how that's just like not normal anymore?
I know, just having a
Like you
normal
sit down and have
conversation.
a 20-minute conversation, 40-minute hour, whatever it is, with no phones, no nothing. You just feel like it's so foreign.
Yeah, no distractions, right? We're just going to sit and have a chat. But for today's episode, we were chatting yesterday about this, and I really want to pick your brain about, I guess, goals for 2025, but also what your goals were and my goals were for this year. And I think it is good to reflect on the year that was. And as
For
we are
sure.
coming towards the end of 2024, it is nice to look back at things we've achieved this year and maybe the goals we didn't quite nail. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell me
hmm
what your goal was for this year, your big goal, what were you working towards, and tell me how that played out.
The big goal was a sub 10-hour Ironman. And if we're talking performance, obviously, like we have business goals and personal goals and all those other
Yeah.
things. But in terms of racing, it was a sub 10-hour Ironman.
Now,
Um,
just for those who are like me and
mhm.
have never done an Ironman, don't know much about the triathlon world, tell us what your marathon time, right, for the, I guess, in air quotes, average person is, I think, on average like a 4 hour 47. What would be the average Ironman time for someone so they can kind of see the gravity of what a sub 10 means?
The average marathon time or the average overall time?
Well, the average overall time, so that they can kind of compare.
It's anywhere between 12 and 15 hours, depending on
Okay.
the course.
Yeah. So your goal was obviously sub 10. Tell me about where does that number come from?
It's a few different things. Number one, I've got long-term goals in the sport where like I want to try and go and win an age group world championship. So age group just means not professional, right? So I'd be
Mm.
competing in the 30 to 34 age group, which is the most competitive age group in Ironman. Um, and I feel like once you cross 10, you start entering like the elite of the age groups. The pros
Mhm.
are obviously down in the low eights, to put that in perspective.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, ten's like you've entered the elite club, so to speak. That's how I look at it. Um, but looking at it from a coaching perspective, I always like to be like, if I put everything together on the day to the best of my ability, what and you know me, I put all my numbers in a spreadsheet and it spits everything out. So like, it's not just a feeling; it's like what data says. Um, if I put everything in a spreadsheet and I reach my potential, I should be in like the 940s.
Okay. So 940s is where you should be. This year you was it up in, where was it, Cops? No,
Cans.
Cairns, sorry. Tell me about that. Tell me about the race, what happened. The goal was sub 10.
Yeah, rough day. Um,
Why? What happened?
uh, so Cairns is like pretty well renowned just from the heat and humidity. It throws a lot of curveballs at athletes. We've got to swim in a wetsuit in the tropics, which is pretty brutal, like in terms of sweat loss and things like that. Um, and we still didn't really get to the bottom of it, but basically got super crook on the bike, like throwing up on the bike, couldn't take in any nutrition, couldn't even stomach water at one point. Um, and when you've got a 180-kilometer bike ride to do, that's less than ideal.
That's definitely
So
less than ideal, I can't imagine. Yeah.
yeah, so it basically just once you start being sick on the bike, unless you are just have an iron gut and you're able to sort of get yourself back together, your day is kind of just about self-preservation from there. So I think I finished in around 12 hours, like either high 11s or very low 12s. Can't remember exactly. I was pretty upset, so I didn't really look at the time. But it was just a rough day of being sick and suffering.
What do you think caused the sickness on the, I know you said it was on the bike. Do you think it was caused by the swim and the heat or just couldn't get nutrition and the nutrition was making you sick?
We got a few different ideas. Number one was if people who don't follow Ironman, we had a pro series race, which means it was televised. So they pull everyone out of the water and we're all standing on the side in the sun while they do all the TV stuff. So we're actually standing in wetsuits in Cairns, sunrise like right on us for like 20 or 30 minutes. So you're just kind of like boiling yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Was that after or before the swim?
so go swim, bike, run. So that was before the swim.
That was before the swim. They didn't
Yeah, so
stop
it was like
when
the
you.
intro for the race. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And then a combination of that and potentially we get given on the bike, there's aid stations, same as a marathon, but like there's just, they're about every 20 Ks. So I did notice every bottle of electrolytes I grabbed at an aid station was like super hot, like it'd been sitting out just baking in the sun. So we think it's probably just a combination of my core body temperature got too hot and then I had nothing cold to bring it back down. So it just kept getting hotter and hotter until I was sick. That's kind of where we've landed. You'll never really know unless like you're running tests and whatnot, but like it is what it is.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I remember for my first marathon in Sydney, it was 30 degrees and I at the time was wearing a running vest. And if you're not sure what like a running vest is for those listening, it is just a little vest as it sounds, but you can put water bottles in the front of it to drink while you're running. And I, being my first marathon, had no idea what to pack. And so I packed everything but
Packed
the
everything.
kitchen sink. Yeah, like this thing was full. And it was meant to be really hot, so they pre-warned us. And I had packed, like, I froze my drink bottles and everything, but they got so hot. And just the stomaching the hot water out of my thing, I can't even imagine what it was like if it was out on the road. Yuck, no good.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we think went wrong. Just
And
too much hot.
when you say we, is that you and your coach?
Coach, sports dietitian. On my other podcast, like my triathlon podcast, I've spoke to some pros and some different coaches and things who I'm not they're not part of like my team, I guess, but just we've had a conversation and they've all sort of echoed similar sentiments. So
Okay. Right. So the sub 10 was your goal for this year. Is it still
Yeah.
your goal for next year or
yes, so the listeners will learn this. Once I've got ADHD and I hyperfixate on things, so I am more obsessed about it than ever. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I think about it every day.
Yeah. Know the feeling all too
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of, like, so that was you leading into Sydney. That was the sub 4, like from when you reached, or when I reached out to you and we're like, cool, like let's work together. You're like, my goal is sub 4 hour marathon.
Yeah,
So,
it's so funny because I was looking back at a kind of like a vision board that I had done for this year. And my first marathon for Sydney, 30-degree day, first ever marathon, was a 4 hour, 47-minute stoked across the finish line. Couldn't care less about my time.
Mhm.
And that is pretty much bang on average for a female, which I was so proud. I've never been more excited to be average. But when we first started talking in my vision board that I'd done, I'd written a sub 4:30 marathon. And then I remember kind of talking to you about it, and I'd kind of thrown out the sub 4 thing, and you were like, let's do it. Let's train for a sub 4. So that was pretty crazy. I thought at the time that was wild. And this girl who could never run, can't imagine running really fast for that long. So that was kind of my big goal. And I think you and I spoke about running Gold Coast as a bit of a trial. And if I could get close to the 4 hour mark, that would be amazing. And then I think, what do you reckon? It was like a week before I was like, let's do sub 4. And you were like, oh, a little bit
Yeah,
nervous.
yeah. You put the fear of God in me for Gold Coast.
I do remember the moment we talked about it. I had just run the Hoka Runaway Half in Sydney,
Hmm.
and you had kind of said to me, look, if you can do a sub 2, theoretically, half marathon that is, theoretically, I should be able to reach for a sub 4, but I could feel that you still weren't super confident.
Yeah. I, the thing there's two different aspects of it. Number one was you were committed to doing Gold Coast and then Sydney,
Mm,
and I didn't feel like it was an optimal lead in, but
no,
we're also not professional. I tell this to all of my athletes: we're not professional athletes, so do what you want. Like,
yeah,
if you want
exactly.
to go running Gold Coast, like let's go running Gold Coast. Like, I'm not going to be like your HRV is going to take a 27% dip for 2 weeks and we can't train. Like, um,
Definitely. Look, I think Gold Coast I got in my head because it's flat and fast. And for those
mm,
that don't run marathons, you might not know, but Gold Coast is meant to be the course that you get the PB at. And I mean, boy, did I.
yeah,
You
crushed it.
coached me all the way to a, what was it, 43-minute PB, which was pretty crazy. Ran
Mm,
across the line at a 4:04.
yeah.
Um, was still pretty disappointed I didn't get that sub 4, but definitely not as disappointed as I was when I ran across the finish line in Sydney this year. That was that was meant to be my A race.
Gold Coast. Gold Coast is a little bit unfortunate because you actually got sick as well in that race.
Yes, I did.
Like 10. So we can do two different perspectives because this will be interesting. Me from a coaching perspective, I track Georgia obviously on my phone, like just through the app, and because I know all of her splits and everything, I can sort of predict where things are going wrong or how to correct things. And I try and get around to different parts of the course and be like, slow down, stay calm, like try. I only get to see her for a few seconds, so I've got to give whatever advice I can. And I was like, the first time I saw you, I was like, oh, she looks great. Like, I'm just going to let her run. And then from the moment I saw you to the moment I saw you again, you had just dropped the hammer. And I was, and I couldn't get to you. Like, obviously, unless I was running a sub 4 hour marathon pace to catch you,
Yeah.
I couldn't give you advice. And then by the time I saw you, the damage was done. And I was like, oh no, like, let's just hope she can
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah, look, you had other athletes
Mm,
to coach as well, so I would never have expected you to run after me. But look, I know what went wrong. As you said, you kind of know what went wrong with yours. I was sick leading up to it, so I'd been taking cold and flu tablets all week. I was not feeling my best. And then on the day, I was given a Gatorade at probably 28 kilometers, and I had never trained running a long run with a Gatorade midway. So I downed a Gatorade and then I just felt sick.
mm.
And I hit 33 Ks and was just seeing stars, which is never good when you're out. It wasn't super hot, it was like 24 degrees or
It
something.
was humid though.
Yeah, it was humid. My heart rate was really high. And yeah, I just started seeing stars. And our whole, uh, sorry, mine and my husband Nick's goal was we were going to run the whole thing together because it was his first marathon. And we always said, let's run it together. And then that way we can finish together. But I had said to him, if anything goes wrong with one of us, be really honest with each other and just say, I can't go, or you keep going, whatever it is, and then go. And so at 33, I kind of just said to Nick, you go, this is it. I'm either not finishing or I'm just going to have to walk a bit and then just try and finish this race. So yeah, I got to one of the aid stations and stood at the thing and held both hands on the table. And I remember the lady being like, are you okay? Because I must have looked like I was going to pass out. And I just, probably not what I should have done, but I just sculled about 3 cups of water because it wasn't an aid station that had electrolytes. Just tried to flush my system and then push through it. And then, yeah, at 40K, I kind of felt better again and sped back up and caught up to Nick, and we ran across the finish line.
Yeah. Weirdly, I think those sort of, and I know it sounds so counterintuitive, I think those performances are important. I think it's important to experience how bad it can go wrong. I don't know exactly know how to articulate it, but there's something like it just sharpens you. Like the more negatives you go through, that I feel like it's easier to correct them and keep moving forward, rather than like if you've just raced perfect races and then something happens, you're like, you just don't know how to deal with it.
Definitely. And look, I think Gold Coast really helped me for Sydney. The goal then for Sydney was, again, still a sub 4. And I think Sydney was one of my better races I've ever done. I felt really good.
100%.
My fueling was a lot better. My heart rate was a lot better. If anything, though, I think the thought of feeling like I felt at Gold Coast kind of scared me a little bit for Sydney to push it when I needed to push it. So if I kind of dropped back from the pacer a bit, I was so scared that if I sped up, I was going to get sick again, that I think that's what hindered me in the long run.
I understand what you're saying, and yes, it makes sense. But like what we spoke about when we did our debrief was, I actually think it did you good in terms of it just gave you a little bit more, like you were just a touch more cautious, and you were like kept your heart rate down just that touch more, which when we're talking endurance, that's the goal, right? It's like how long can you keep your heart rate under control? Because once it spikes, once it go over threshold, it's game over. And that's what happened in Gold Coast. Like if we call a spade, like you ran too quickly for too long. Heart rate was in, I think your average heart rate was 167 or 168 from memory. And we trained for a 159. So that's a 10 beat float. So that's a lot. Especially when we get higher up on the scale of heart rate. So I think it actually probably served you good long term.
Yeah, and like, look, in endurance sports, you kind of can't go, oh, if I had pushed it here, maybe I would have got my goal.
Yeah, can't play that game.
Because right, you can't do that, because if I had pushed it there, maybe my heart rate would have spiked and then maybe I wouldn't have even finished. So it was very 100%. Hard to start going, oh, what if? Because at the end of the day, I gave it everything. I really raced what I thought was a really good race. I came down Macquarie Street in Sydney, which is the last kilometre or 2 of the race. And in my mind, I was running a sub 4. My watch completely, I said it was 6 or 7 minutes under a sub 4. So I had the biggest grin on my face. I was so happy. But I've come to learn, and the internet has come to tell me, that just because your watch says one thing, that doesn't mean your official time is going to be the same.
Yeah, I felt like there's 2 things to that. One, you said like you felt like you ran a really good race. I think in endurance, because it is such a long event, and when I say endurance, I think even 10K and above sort of thing, like we're starting to enter the realm of endurance where you can't bullshit your way through it, right? Like you can just, like you cannot fake a sub 40 minute 10K, for example. Like you got to train for it, you got to go and do it. And the longer those races go, the less room there is for bullshit. And I think once you finish a race, you know deep down, it's like, I had nothing left to give. If like you execute a race as good as you can, then that's just an intrinsic feeling, and it doesn't matter what the data says. Like you just know that you executed as well as you could. The second part of that is what I got really annoyed with, like some of the backlash you got because it wasn't. I just don't think it was just like. Sure, the official time says, whatever it said, 4:01 or something. What
Four,
was it?
4 hours and 36 seconds.
4 hours 36 seconds. And the people who did try to give you some stick about it said, it's an official marathon. It's all measured and stuff. I'm like, it is officially measured, but it's also measured straight down the middle of the shortest possible track.
Yeah.
So you've got to hit every corner like perfectly. It doesn't account for groups and things like that. So I felt like it's hard for me as a coach because the effort was, like you said, it's 5 or 6, 7 minutes under. The effort was there for that result. Just the nature of running in one of the largest marathons in the world hindered that. So it's like a rock and a hard place where, yes, official time doesn't support it, but
Yeah.
like effort, I don't know, like if everything could just be based on effort, it'd be awesome. But if that was any other race in the world, like you probably would have run sub 4 comfortably. So it's just it was a little bit shitty.
Yeah, look, and without that, as they say, the blue line, which is that famous line that runs down the middle of most world marathons, without that blue line, how are you supposed to know the exact line in which you're meant to race, right? And it was busy. Like I was in the busiest group.
Yep.
I was in C, so that is your average runner, which made up most of the race.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, look, the backlash was interesting. As I ran across that finish line, I was so upset when I saw my official time. But then when I started seeing comments on Strava from those that follow me on Strava, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you did a sub 4." And then all my data said I was doing a sub 4. So then I got excited and, of course, posted probably a little too soon, which is a bit of my downfall. But I kind of posted, "Oh, this was my Strava time." And then that's where the backlash started. And it was crazy.
I found it so interesting because I'm so removed from that world. Like,
Yeah.
if I posted something and someone commented, like I wouldn't even read it. Like it doesn't enter my world.
Yeah.
But obviously it's it's part of your business, like your personal brand.
Yeah.
So you have to engage, you have to be a part of it. And guys, I am working on it, right? I do see some comments, but I'm just awful. George is always getting at me for it. She's like, you got to engage.
Engage with your audience, please. But yeah, look, I probably shouldn't have read them, but the comments were so beautiful from a lot of my
The
following.
majority of them were fantastic.
100%, like 95% of the comments were so amazing, and I'm so grateful for having such an incredible community online where hundreds and hundreds of comments were saying congratulations on your sub 4, you totally did it. But then there was that 5% of people who just wanted to tell me, "Oh, the GPS is off," or you can't trust your watch, and official is official, and
I
goodness.
coached 9 people through the Sydney Marathon, and you had the shortest distance at 43 something.
Yeah, it was 43 something.
I don't want to say, like, people can say the GPS is off. Like I literally had 9 athletes, none of them ran a 42.2.
Yeah,
None of them even had a 42. So
totally. It was crazy. Like, I mean, I didn't expect it. I mean, I had people that I considered friends messaging me being like, "Pull your head in, you didn't get an official, get over it." And I was like, whoa, it's crazy.
Yeah, super strange. And yeah, weirdly, I'm just thinking back now, I actually copped my dog just tried to bark. I copped a little bit of it after Cairns because I did a post saying, I believe I was sub 10 fit. I just didn't get the sub 10 day.
I remember that.
Like I'd done the training stuff, and heaps of people messaged me like just carrying on, and I was like, oh, I just don't care. So
See, I was the total opposite and fully cried for 2 days straight.
I remember.
And it frustrated me so much because I was so happy with what I thought was a perfect race for me.
Well, it was your best race ever.
Yeah, totally.
Still to date.
Still to date. And then just to have all these random people, I still get comments on that video on TikTok now. People being like, "Just admit it, you failed." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." It doesn't affect me as much now though.
Yeah. Oh,
a bit
I
over it
don't
now.
think. Yeah, I don't think it should. Like, it's just
No, it's
no,
fuel, right? It's fuel to the fire. It's
100%. And I think I got more fired up about it than you did. I was just like, we're gonna fucking show these people.
yeah, exactly. Look, I was just filming a video for TikTok and I was talking about my goals for next year just ahead of this podcast recording. And I was talking about what I wanted to do next year. And I was just like, I don't want to just do a sub 4. Like, I want to smash a sub 4 so that I could stick it to all those people that just thought it'd be so great to comment on
Yeah,
my
I
video.
th-
So,
I think that there's definitely two aspects of that. Is like, uh, re- the saying's like revenge is a fire, but it burns hot, right? So it
yeah,
means
big
like
one.
you can't use it for a whole year, or you can't use it for a whole thing. So like use it when it's appropriate. But number two, I think the real moral of the story for both of us is not to put as much stock into social media comments.
Mm,
Um, mostly because, and this is something I've realized since delving into the world of YouTube, I've never received a negative comment from someone doing better than me.
yeah, that's interesting.
And that's like a real famous saying in sports. Like they used to say it about like sports writers. They'd be like,
Yeah.
sports writers can't get out on the court, can't get out on the field, so they write negative comments. And most of them are like failed high school athletes. So that's where it stems from. I'm not saying people who leave comments are failed high school athletes, but
No, of course. I know
um,
what you mean. It's
yeah,
more
but
about, you're doing more than they are in that
yeah,
exact
like,
moment.
and it's so easy to comment when you're not the one putting yourself out there. Like
Mm.
if your Instagram, again, putting too much stock in social media, but if your Instagram's got 10 posts and the last one was 7 months ago, and someone like yourself who posts every single day, putting yourself out there, like the scope to be attacked negatively, and attack might be too strong a word, but have negative thoughts come your way, it's just so much greater.
Yeah, I think socials is a tricky one. I think you open yourself up to an incredible community of people, and you build this community of wonderful people who want to say wonderful things.
Yeah. The
But
pros outweigh the cons massively.
100%. The pros will always outweigh the cons, and that's why I keep doing it. But you also have to be aware that you open yourself up to the negativity. You open yourself up to those people that just feel the need to just say what they think before thinking about it.
Yeah, and I definitely think no, I'm not gonna. Oh, I don't know exactly know how to word that. I was gonna say something about the building a platform and I don't want to build an echo chamber where it's just one form of message getting through, where it's like, hey, it's just positivity or it's just negativity. Like I think you do need the yin and the yang, because that's what makes the whole. If you just get nothing but love, then like the old
Well,
saying
then,
in marketing is like, if you're not pissing someone off, then you're not selling. But
yeah, exactly. And you do need the high to your low, right?
for sure,
You need those people to bring you back down to reality because I think there are some people out there who probably only get positivity and then their head gets a little bit too big.
yeah,
And they
100%.
forget where they come from, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, look, I think social media, as you said, and being on socials has its downfalls, especially when you're training for endurance races and trying to film at the same time.
yeah. Um, in saying that, guys, I think we're going to do a whole episode just where we talk about socials and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll do a deep dive. But I think the real message I want to drive home from this is don't let a fear of social media, a fear of negative comments like stop you from posting or stop you from doing something on Strava, like worrying about what people think of your pace or how far you ran. Like I think it's super important that you just do your own thing and do your own journey and don't let other people's opinions affect what you want to do.
No, definitely. I totally agree with you on that. I think, I could have let the comments affect me and then I could have given up and been like, oh, that's it. I don't want to do it again in case someone says something negative. Yeah, use it to drive yourself, but also there's always good reasons to do it. And it's been great for me and I love it. And I mean, we have this awesome friendship now, so that's good. And that's come through socials.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
Um, cool. I think we should probably talk about, since we're talking about goals, let's talk about like goal setting and how you come up with your goals and how you sort of put weight into them, whether this is like a priority goal or this is something a little bit less important. Let's go through that.
Yeah, look, for this next year, I'm I've done the same thing as I did last year in that I've created a bit of a vision board. I'm very visual, so I've set some personal goals. I think I started with a few things that were really important to me, and I'm mostly just talking about in my running life.
Yeah,
As
let's
you
just
said
keep it
before.
running for now. As
Yeah,
we
like
as we go along, if people want to know more about us, we can share that sort of stuff.
I don't want to bore people with my personal life goals.
Yeah.
They're pretty boring, trust me. Um, but for running, I think my biggest goal for 2025 is still, as I said, that one timed marathon doing better. And then I kind of surrounded my goals around that one goal, and then I worked out what was important to me for the next year. So I'm focusing all my energy on that marathon. And then I'm going to set some smaller goals in the meantime to help me get to that larger goal. So whether that be a bit of a faster half marathon, setting myself, Matt's nodding at me, telling me, yes, that is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Definitely a faster half marathon.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like working on my form is such a big goal for me this year. And I think you've mentioned this to me before, Matt, and that my form sucks in the nicest way possible. And that's fine. I'm going to work on that this year. But I don't really have heaps of goals this year. My big goal is that one big race. And then I've got quite a few personal ones. But as I said, not going to get into that. How about you, Matt? Do you have a different way of doing it? I'm not really super rigid in how I do my goal setting. I kind of just throw one out there and hope for the best and work around that.
Um, I try and I come up with a goal and then I try and like make it. I do little tests on people.
Hmm.
So I actually did one on you the other day.
Oh
Um,
God.
so I'm not going to tell people what it is because it's still kind of top secret. But remember when I said what I was going to do for 7 days?
Yeah. And I called you
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. So pretty much if I get that reaction, I know I'm on the right track. That's
Good.
how I try and suss things out. Um, I like to think that if the majority of people think I'm insane, then it's probably big enough and it's worth my time and attention.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, right. I get what you mean now.
yeah.
It's whether you think your goal is a big enough crazy goal as opposed to how good a friend am I.
Yeah, 100%. But I ask my friends because they'll give me an honest reaction.
Yeah.
Like,
What
if
did the
someone
most of your
just,
friends say? What did they all say to you?
uh, pretty much the same thing. Got the
Mm,
reaction I wanted. One very,
good.
like, except for one, Pete, if you're listening, he just said, I don't care. I said, I need your help in January 2026. Same as what I
Mm,
said to you. And
yeah.
he just said, I don't care what it is, just sign me up. So,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, Pete's a ride or die. He's unreal.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so lovely. Kind of,
yeah.
yeah, he'll drop
He's
anything.
also a lunatic, though. So,
Ma- Same matched energy, right?
yeah,
I
100%.
mean, don't they say you're the product of the five people
Five
around you or
people, yeah.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you surround yourself with, yeah.
love that.
Yeah, but everyone pretty much said it was crazy. So that's how I know it's the right path.
Right.
Um, but I'd say my big goal is still sub 10. Like
Yeah.
that'll be in the first half of the year. And that's kind of like my A race. That's my main focus.
Yeah.
And then I've set up some like we've nicknamed them side quests. But like, I have to hit my performance goal to like unlock the side quest, so to speak. So if I don't go sub 10, I don't get to do the fun stuff.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So just got to stay focused on one goal and then I can do some fun stuff in the back half of the year. But yeah, it'll
Yeah.
be sub 10 and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, I just want to say that I think it's okay to have goals and not just reach your goal straight away.
I
I've
think
had
it's
this,
important.
yeah, like I think, look, I've had this sub 4 goal for a while now, and I've had 2 attempts at this goal and still haven't got it, but it's still making me want to do better. You've had this, sorry, sub 4, I don't know what I said, sub 10, whatever. You have had this sub 10 goal, and how many times have you attempted it now?
Failed it twice.
Failed it twice, so same as me, right?
Yeah.
Failed
But
in the nicest way possible.
yeah, I think it's super important. Like I think if you set a goal and you just crush it first go, no worries, thanks for coming. Like imagine you ran a 3:37, right? Just as a random number. Like
Yeah.
what do we set sub 4 for? Like it wasn't even competitive. That's how I look at it. Like I want when I complete a goal, I want to know that I had to be 100% for an extended period of time. I had to be fully focused. Nutrition, supplementation, sleep, recovery, training. I had to tick every box day in, day out. If I just wake up and be like, all right, I'll just do a sub 10-hour Ironman tomorrow. So it's not, where's the fun?
Well, yeah, where's the fun? You're not pushing yourself enough, right? You want those people to tell you you're crazy to then go, this is a big enough goal. Because if it was an easy goal, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's not really a goal.
And I've always, my dad always used to say, if you aim for the stars and you might land on the moon and the view's pretty good from there as well. So
Yeah.
it's like, set your goals ridiculously high. And then even if you make it 60, 70, 80% of the way there, it's so much further than if you had a set just a conservative goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I always try and live by that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's so true. I mean, you've got to kind of set these crazy goals for yourself, right? Because otherwise, what's the point? And I think having
Go for it.
goals is what makes running or endurance sports or triathlons so fun, is you've got something to work towards, and that's what drives you to get up every day and train and do things.
Yeah, and just for people listening, like if you think about doing your first marathon or first triathlon or whatever, you don't need to set a time goal. Like finishing is a tremendous goal in itself. And I would say the majority of athletes who come and like ask me for coaching, their goal is to finish.
Yeah. That was my
And
first goal. My first goal
yeah,
for Sydney was always, I just want to get across the finish line. Because
yeah,
I think somewhere in there, it's lost on a lot of people how big a marathon is or how big an Ironman really is. And so finishing is such an amazing achievement.
yeah. In the top 1% of people on the planet, like and even half marathon, 10K, your first park run, whatever, like you've all got to start somewhere, but don't think you've got to set, if I can't run a 20-minute park run, I'm not going to do it. Like just go out and do the thing and then work out where you're at and try and get a little bit better.
Definitely. I think, just as my favorite brand always says, 1% better every day, just always trying to improve yourself like a little bit every day. Look, set a goal, but it doesn't have to be, as you said, a timed goal. It can also just be a goal to get it done.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with one of my guys, Dave. He's going to do his first Ironman the reason I'm being a bit secretive is I haven't announced what the sub 10-hour race is going to be yet. I'm not going to announce it till January. Yeah. So
secretive, Matt. All these secrets and
cards to my chest.
I know.
Gets people to engage in the content. They want to know when it is.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, woohoo, this is what I'm doing all the time. We're so opposite.
Well, no, to be fair, previously in the lead up, this is about learning and evolving. So
Yeah.
for my first failed attempt at the sub 10 was December 23. And then pretty much the day after I was like, I'm going to Cairns. It's in 6 months. I'm going sub 10. Like, I don't care. Post it all the time. Talk about it on my stories all day. I did a countdown. Like, it's 99 days till I complete a sub 10-hour Ironman, blah, blah, blah. Did the whole thing.
Yeah, that broke my heart.
Yeah. You're telling me. And then a few people who I really, really respect just said, take a step back, just train really, really hard for 6 months and then make a decision. Yeah. So we only recently made the decision, but rather than going through trying to like headbutt my way through a wall, which is what I did with the Cairns one where I was just trying to force it.
Yeah.
We're just like, cool. When I get back from, I'm going to Fiji for a week in January. When I get back from Fiji, it's like that length of time. So it's anywhere from 4 to 6 months is going to be just an all out sprint of like, cool, this is when we do the social media. This is when we do like, this is when you're all in on it. The rest of the time is just all about training.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, uh, Dave is doing the Ironman, the same Ironman, and that's his first. And he messaged me saying, "What do you think about a time goal? Like, what do you think I should be aiming for?" And I said to him, I was like, "There are pros and cons to aiming for a time goal. Number one being if you don't hit it, it can ruin your day." And I've let that happen to me twice, Cairns and Bustleton. I had a horrible race. I didn't want to do Ironman afterwards. Like I was ready to throw in the towel, sort of thing. And that can really break people. The second part of that is, there's always a feel of never being satisfied because you can always go quicker. So it's a fine line to walk. Like you got to decide when the time is right to start putting in time goals. Time goals for certain athletes, the same way you said you're very visual with your vision board. Time goals can motivate athletes beyond belief because they know the metrics they need to hit, they know the data, they know the numbers, and it's just a math equation. For other athletes, it really fucks with them because they're like, I can't hit those numbers, I can't do that. They have a bad day and it throws it into a bad week. So it's like it's a real fine line to walk, and you really got to take your time and understand what you're getting yourself into when you start thinking about performance.
Yeah. Just going back to what you said about not like keeping your cards close to your chest. Do you think that telling people your big goal is a good thing or a bad thing? Because for me, I didn't say anything about sub 4 until the week before Gold Coast. And then I spoke about it and I really put it out into the universe. Do you think it's better to keep things close to your chest, or do you think it's better to tell people about it?
I think it definitely depends on the person. If you're a person so the majority of endurance athletes are A-type personalities, right? Like they're go-getters. They can deal with high stress. If you're someone who can deal with high stress, whatever you put out into the universe, it multiplies,
Yeah.
right? And it compounds. So for you doing it a week before, for some people that might be too much. For me, I actually wanted to, as soon as I finished Cairns, I wanted to do it. But if those couple of guys who I spoke to didn't give me the advice, I would, yeah. So I'm going to do like a 4 to 6 month lead in. I'm going to do the countdown. I'm going to do it all again. But I thrive on that pressure. I like expectation. I like being like, everyone wants me to fail, but I'm going to fucking do it. Like I thrive off that.
Yeah.
Some athletes, it's too much. Some athletes crack and their race is done before because they're sitting there the day before, nervous energy, being like, oh my God, I've told all these people I'm going to do a sub 4 hour marathon. Like, and they're
What if
burning
I
up
let
all
them
this.
down? Yeah.
Yeah, burning up all this nervous energy. By the time they get to the race, they are cooked. And
Yeah.
I've seen that. You see that with fighters in like MMA and boxing. You see it with like footy players before big games, like grand finals and things. They get out and they're just flat because the whole week, the whole build up has just taken so much out of them. And really, the race should be the fun part. Like that should be the part you just can't wait to do. And you should be excited for it. If you've spent all of this energy focused on something that is not the race, then it can be it's extremely detrimental.
I think I'm a bit halfway between the two, right? I need to put a goal out there so that I'm accountable.
There is definitely
And
that is positive.
yes, that's a positive for sure. And I mean, I wanted to put it out there because, not gonna lie, I wanted to tell people and I wanted people to be excited, and it's good for content, all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I can understand that, in the days leading up to Gold Coast and even Sydney, actually, I was so nervous to let people down. And I was nervous to let you down as my coach. I was like, we've worked so hard for this, all of the pep talks and the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to let that down because I knew people knew the goal, and I think I'm halfway. It's a bit of a tricky one. I don't know what I want to do for this next one, if I want to say my actual goal or if I just stick with the old sub 4.
Yeah, so I'll let a card slide from my deck just to like, this might help you and it might help other people too, just based on what you just said there at the end, like your actual goal. I'm really, 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 really confident I'm going to crush 10. Like, I have zero doubt in my mind. I feel like if there was an Ironman in 6 weeks' time, I'd be able to do a sub 10 then. Like, I truly believe that. I'm as fit as I've ever been, anything. So, in my mind, I'd be like, should I aim for 9:45? Should I aim for 9:40? So, like how far could I push it? But then there is also the part where, and I think this is important in endurance sport, is you need to earn your stripes, right? So if I feel like if I went out to people on socials, let's just say I announced the race today and I said, I'm going to go 9:40. I feel like people would disengage, not talking content, but just that's obviously a much bigger pool of people than like your group of friends. More people would disengage and be like, well, you haven't even gone 10. So
Yeah. I was going to say, as soon as you started saying that, I was thinking the same exact thing. I was like, people want you to reach that sub 10 goal, right?
Yeah. That's what they connect on. Then like, I feel like especially if you fail, like I feel like, so I failed sub 10 twice. If I go out and say I'm going to go 9:40, people are going to be like you haven't proven to us you can do the thing.
Yeah, like, mate, calm down.
Yeah, exactly. Calm down. Calm down. Exactly. So
calm down.
While you can train for certain metrics in your head and you'll be like, I know if I fucking put it together on the day, I am going to achieve this and that's what I am capable of. And you and I can have our conversations and be like, cool, this is what we're training for. But I do think there is something to being like, hey, you're part of the sub 4 club. Hey, you're part of the sub 10 club. And then you can start to play around with, cool, let's go for 350, 345. Maybe I've got a 2-year goal to qualify for Boston and run a 330. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can play around with different things like that. Like, I want to qualify for Kona, but I can't even dream of qualifying for Kona until I go sub 10. Like, I have to reach one before the other. Got to unlock the levels.
Yeah. What is the qualification for Kona? What's the time?
It's not a time. It is you've all the races have different slots, but it's anywhere from 1 to 5 in your age group, and they'll take like the top 1 to 5. But
I see.
It'll have an 8 at the front of it.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
probably.
Yeah, look, I think those crazy big endurance races like that and stuff, it's wild what they can do.
Yeah, when you start talking about the pros, like my mate Berto, he holds the Australian record for an Ironman bike at the moment. So he did 180 Ks in just under 4 hours. So he averaged like 46 kilometers an hour on a bike.
Wow.
Which is just
crazy.
Preposterous.
What's the record in the world? Like, what's the world record on a bike?
I actually don't know.
Did you see that guy in Kona this year who absolutely smashed? Was it the bike and then he started to crash after the run?
Yeah. So he was the world champion.
That broke my heart. Poor guy.
Everyone kind of knew it. It was this weird thing where it was like going to go one of two ways, where either he's a phenomenal swimmer and a phenomenal biker and like a pretty good runner. Not a great runner, but pretty good runner. Yeah. And everyone was like, he's either going to break every record that's ever been set or he's going to blow up, and we're all just sort of sitting there watching. But you got to wait 7 hours to see what happens.
It's a long race to be
waiting. It's a shit TV sport, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, it's nearly as bad as cricket, I'll tell you that much.
Hey.
On that note, I think we could probably go on about this forever, but it is nice to talk to you about kind of goals for the next year and this year's goals and stuff like that. But I think the main takeaways from this are, setting yourself goals, making sure your goals are a big enough goal that they're not, you know, something you can just easily do. You got to actually put some effort in, right? And yeah, how about you, Matt? What are your main takeaways from today?
I think be ambitious, but be accountable. I think accountability is probably the underlying message of what we're talking about in terms of sub 4 and then setting a goal without breaking sub 4. I think accountability to yourself, like I've got to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to be risky. Like don't play it too safe. Like you only get one go around. There's that old saying in business where people underestimate what they can do in a year and overestimate what they can do in 5, something like that.
Yeah.
Can't remember exactly what it is. You can do a lot in a year. You can do a lot in a training block. You can do a lot in 6 months. Like, don't be like, this is an impossible task. Like, push yourself. And if you fall short, that's okay. Just get up and go again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is okay to not reach your goal every single time.
It's
important.
encouraged.
Yeah, look, it's
Failure is part of
definitely
the journey.
failure is definitely part of the journey, and it's been a big part of my journey and a big part of yours. And hopefully, we both reach our goals next year.
100%. You appreciate the goal more too if you failed a couple of times. It's sweeter.
Much sweeter. And I think having that, for me, having that sub 4 official time will be so, so sweet.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, guys, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited to keep recording some more episodes with you, Matt, every Monday, hey?
Yeah, every Monday.
Every Monday. See you then.
See ya.